Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Socially Desi Show, the podcast that motivates you to live, create, and inspire. If this is your first time here, welcome. On our show, we discuss tips and strategies with our guest speakers on how to tackle problems related to personal growth, mental health, relationships, business and entrepreneurship, and health and fitness. So hit that subscribe button and go check out our website at sociallydesi.com for more of such content. Today, I am joined by Mr. Neeraj Saxena. He is the managing partner at Xscale Accelerator. Xscale Accelerator is a new age startup accelerator that aims to create world class entrepreneurs out of India by transforming sales and providing access to global markets. So, with that, welcome Mr. Neeraj on the Socially Desi Show.
Thanks, Anurag. Thanks a lot for having me here. It's my pleasure to talking to you and the audience.
The pleasure is all mine, Neeraj. Thank you so much for doing this on the Socially Desi Show. I'm sure today's episode is going to be a great one for all the young entrepreneurs and people who are in their startup journey, and they will learn a lot of things from this episode. Before we begin, Neeraj, I would love to know about your professional journey and the whole inspiration behind starting Xscale.
Absolutely, Anurag. So overall, I have worked for more than 2 decades in corporates. I worked with companies like HCL, SAP, and then FIS, which is Fidelity Information Systems. Mostly, I have been on the strategy development and the sales side throughout my career. In my last role at FIS, I was leading their strategy and sales operations for their international markets. It's a $1 billion business for them. So that's about journey on the corporate side. In parallel, I was working, actually investing and advising startups for over last 5 years. I have been a board advisor for a couple of startups. So I have got to see the first-hand view of the startup ecosystem through that, right? And then, since you asked what motivated me or what inspired me to start Xscale. One of the key reasons was, so I was in a global role. I was traveling, a lot of countries, right?
Right.
In last 2 decades. One of the things I noticed, and possibly all of the listeners here would have noticed, that we have, such great leaders who are coming out of India and leading the global corporations, right?
Right.
So we know Satya Nadella, we know Sundar Pichai, we know Shantanu from Adobe, right? So we know all of them, right? So when you go and talk about India outside of India, right, especially some of those who are not initiated in the Indian business ecosystem as such, right? You ask them, can you name some of the few leaders from India? They can speak out a dozen of names, right? Without a hitch. You ask the second question, can you name some of the great companies out of India? They go blank most of the time. Sometimes they come up with names like TCS, Infosys, because these are the companies that have some presence in US in some form. But none of the product companies they can really recall out of India, right?
Right.
Which is in a way a bit of embarrassment, if you really ask me. To me, a country of 1.3 billion people, 1/5 of the global population, almost, or 1/6, we don't have that proportionate share in the Fortune 500 global index, right? We hardly have few companies, who just keep going up or down, in sub-100 levels, right? And that's kind of worries me. That kind of makes me unhappy about the things that are there, and I really want to do something to change it, right?
Right.
And then when I was thinking about it, I was talking to a lot many people, right, and I got different perspective about it, right? So some of them said, "Hey, you can't compare India with the United States because United States has a history of 200 years of independence. India got independence 70 years back. So, we are relatively new in terms of economy. We built our economy in last 70 years. And my answer to that is, even if I take all of that, right, I can name the countries that, that got independence or stand on their feet much later than us. and they have a better share. Number one.
True.
Number
Yeah.
two, leave apart all of this. Let's talk about the startups, right?
Yep.
Startups don't come with such a baggage, right? So that we are not talking about the Tatas, we are not talking about the Exxon Mobil's of the world, right?
True.
Let's talk about the startups who are starting now, right? How many Indian startups have truly gone global, right? And
Hmm.
acquired a name from themselves, right? Very few names are there, right? Freshworks is the latest one, we all know,
True.
right?
Yeah.
But then the Freshworks is more of exception rather than a rule, if you really ask me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So that's my problem. That fundamentally we are not aspiring for a global vision. I'm involved in the startup ecosystem of some of the other countries as well, like Singapore and US.
Okay.
When I talk to founders there, I see they have aspiration from the beginning itself, a very
Hmm.
global aspirations to dominate, to make a product that dominates the world, right? Necessarily, they don't have all the funding or all the capabilities upfront in the place, but at least their aspirations are there, right? I don't see that much of global aspiration here in India. So
Yep. Yep.
these are the things, possibly I would like to change in my own personal capacity, whatever, to the limit I can change. So this is the inspiration to start Access Scale to really create world class companies out of India.
Interesting point of view there, Neeraj, because I also feel that a lot of startups that come up in India are not truly thinking global. But again, the question arises here: do you really need to think global from day one, or is it something that you bring into your framework later on? Like, for example, Zomato also, they started locally, but then within the first 5 years, I think they went to more than 26 countries. So they
Yeah.
had a plan, and they went across different countries in a very strategic manner, and hence the IPO. Do you feel this the thinking when you talk about the mindset of an
Mhm.
entrepreneur? Is it a mindset or is it a process?
So I think it's both, Anurag. If you ask me, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
If you don't have a mindset, right, you can't initiate action, right? You won't take action in that direction, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So mindset is must, I would say, right, to even initiate action, right? And then
Right.
if you ask me about the process, the process has to take over. Means process is the one that guides you of the steps to reach there, right? But if you
Right.
don't have an intention to do something, process cannot help you, right? Process is a way to reach the means, or to reach the goal, right, that you're targeting. But if you
Yep.
are not, setting your goal high up there, it won't be, any process can't take you there, right? But
True.
obviously, if you just have the mindset, or you just have the intention, but you are not following the right process, anyway you will not reach there, in that case also. So both are required in that order, I would say.
And in your experience with working with so many startups, what are the challenges that you see young entrepreneurs face while they are starting up in their journey?
Yeah, so I think a great question, and before even going to the challenges, let me take a step back and then try to see what are the key constituents or ingredients to make a
Hmm.
successful business, right?
Hmm.
Right,
Hmm.
in any business, right, a startup or an established business, right? So
Yep.
there are fundamental four components to make a successful startup or any business, right? One is the three are on the skill side, and which are the technical, functional, and distribution skills. And I'll talk about that to explain what I mean by that. And fourth is the capital, right?
Hmm.
Now let me explain that, right? What I mean by that. So I spoke about the three skills: functional, technical, and distribution. What is a functional skill? So functional skill is the skill about the industry or the domain for which you are trying to solve the problem for. Let's take an example. Let's say you are a fintech startup, right? Essentially,
Hmm.
that means you are trying to solve a problem in a BFSI space, right?
Right.
Banking and financial institutions, right? So, but functional knowledge tells you that do you understand that space enough that you understand their core problems and then try to solve a right problem that needs to be solved, right?
Yep. Yep.
Similarly, if you're trying to solve a problem in supply chain space, do you really understand the supply chain bottlenecks properly? Not the theoretical ones that are taught in many of the books in engineering or the MBA colleges, right?
Yep.
But the real true pain points that exist in the ecosystem, and then you are trying to solve some of that. So those are the functional skills, right?
Right.
The technical skills are those skills that most of the companies today are actually the tech companies, right? Be it a fintech, ed tech, HR tech, deep tech, whatever you say, right? Mostly what we are trying to do is a legacy problem, trying to solve it through the use of technology, right? Mostly that kind of a thing we are trying to do, right?
Okay.
So technical skills, when I say, so the technical skills are required. Do you have the skills to solve the problem? You understood the problem is one part, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now do you have the skills to solve the problem, the technical skills? Does the founder or the founding team has that kind of a skill, right? Because you need to
Right.
reiterate and try quite a few things before you hit on the right solution, right? So you cannot. It's very difficult to outsource the technical thing in the beginning. Later on, you can build a technical team, hire a CTO, or outsource it. But in the beginning, normally founders need to have a good technical skill
True.
if they want to, truly solve the problem quickly, right? So that's a technical skills, right? That
Right.
is a
Right.
requirement. Third is the distribution skill. Distribution, when I say this, combines things like the sales, marketing, go to market. So entire thing, you built a product. Do you know how to take it to the market? So that's the distribution skill. Do you have that capability or the knowledge within you, your founding team, right? And fourth is the capital, right? That you need capital to achieve all of that, right?
Hmm.
Now let's go back to this list one by one, and then I'll give my perspective based on my interaction with a lot of founders, right, and the
Sure.
startups.
Yeah.
That where I think, especially in India, I'm taking an India perspective here completely, right? In US, the thing is completely different, right? Versus,
Hmm.
versus India, right? So in India, the thing is that the technical skills are great. So fundamentally, if you ask me that is technical skills is much of a challenge, my answer is no. Mostly the folks who are founding the startups, normally at least one of them have great technical skills, right? And
Right.
technical skills, in my view, I have not seen much of a challenge, right? Now let's come to the second thing, functional one. The functional side, I see those founders who come with the experience, means they have some work experience, either working in a corporate or working in a startup, whichever way. Normally, they start something, in line with that, and hence they come with some kind of functional skills, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Means they identified a problem, they are working there, they identified a problem, and then they jumped in to solve, right?
Right.
So normally, in experienced founders, functional skills is not much of a problem. Those who are starting directly out of, I would say, colleges, sometimes there is a challenge in the functional skills because they read a lot of papers, etc. Academic papers, and then they think or they try to solve a problem, which sometimes is not in line with what market is looking for. And then
Correct.
maybe
Correct.
during the discussion of in talk, I'll give you some interesting examples of these kind of a situation. But I'll park that for now. So second is the functional skills, but that's it. That's not there whenever there's the experienced founders.
Yep. Yep.
Third is the distribution skills. I would say this is the thing which is killing the Indian startups to the largest extent. Means I have seen so many great startups not going anywhere because they lack the distribution skills. It's not like they had a bad product; they were not solving a right problem. They have all of this right, but they just don't know how to reach out to their potential customer, especially if you talk about
Yeah.
the B2B space, right? Where the decision maker are our VPs, CXOs, reaching them itself is a challenge, right? For most of the
True. True.
for the youngsters, for the founders or the startups, right? They are not easily accessible. In B2C, you can still do some Google ads, some Facebook ads, stuff like that, right? Try to
Yeah.
reach try
Yeah.
to reach your customers. But in B2B, it does not work, and hence many of the startup failure I have seen, despite of having great products, they could not able to distribute it, right, or reach the right audience, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's where something I think if you ask me, is something that is lacking. And I'll come to the last part, which is the capital or the funding. I think this is I would say more overhyped, especially in the startup founders' mind, honestly, right?
Correct, correct.
I don't want to, say it negatively, but capital or funding is an outcome. Capital is not a beginning, right? If you go to any VC, right? If you go with the first three things in place, technical, functional, and distribution, right? You show that these three capabilities you have, right? You will get funding. I don't know
True.
any startup which has all the right ingredients in place and they have not got the funding. That's the thing. So right. So capital normally comes if you have the right components in place. Capital normally comes. So that's my take on the current challenges that
Hmm.
startups face.
Absolutely. And even I believe that distribution is for sure one of the biggest challenge, because we don't feel that we are salesmen at the end of the day. Every founder tries to move away from sales, and they want somebody else to do it. But at the end of the day, it's you who need to reach out. And if you can do it for your product, I'm sure that's going to be a huge hit, not just for the customers also, but for your own morale, for your own company. But then
True.
the challenge that comes here, Neeraj, is how do you go from 0 to 1 fast? Because that is what, like you said, is killing most of the businesses, most of the startups in India, because they are not able to distribute, they're not able to reach out to their customers fast enough. So
Yeah.
what would be your advice, your strategy that you would like to give to the listeners today? How do
Sure.
they go from 0 to 1 fast in their entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very relevant question you asked, Anurag, right? So as we discussed, right, distribution is one of the aspects, right, apart from technical
Hmm.
and functional. So initially, look, what is 0 to 1? 0 to 1 is from idea to product market fit is 0 to 1, right?
Yep. Yep.
That means you have an idea, you build a MVP, you build the first iteration of your product, you go to a certain set of customers, and at least somebody is willing to buy it and pay some money for it, right?
True.
That means you achieve the product market fit, right? So that is the 0 to 1 journey, and then after that, the next journey starts, right? 1 to N journey. But the first journey, what you need is obviously the technical and functional skills. Without that, you don't even have a product, right? If you don't
Right.
have the right technical skills, you won't able to build a product, right? So essential. So technical skills is absolutely essential. Functional skill is absolutely essential because we are talking about will it somebody buy it or not buy it?
Yep.
They will buy
Yep.
it only if there is a real pain point you are solving, right? And you will solve it if you understand the ecosystem or the domain properly, right? So
True.
technical and functional skills are absolute must, right? Especially in 0 to 1 journey, right? But the third component, which is you rightly said, has been completely been ignored, right? Is also plays a very important role here, right? Uh, so again, I advise to startups, I work with, that you start selling your half baked products, and that sounds fairly stupid to some people, that why I am advising them to sell a half baked product, because anyway we know that nobody will need it, right? Uh, but think about it. It's like putting water in a leaky bucket, right?
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
intention is not to fill the bucket, but intention is to figure out where are the leaks,
Yep.
right? So how do you otherwise figure out? And then same goes with the punctured tire, right? You take a punctured tire to a mechanic. The first thing he do is he fill the air, right? Obviously, he's not filling the
Yep.
air so to make you drive the car or a two-wheeler for that matter. He is filling the air there to check where is the puncture, right?
True. True.
And exactly, so when what happens is when you are in your development journey, you take the product to some customers, some potential customers, even the half-baked one. At least he will exactly point out what you are lacking. He will not buy it, we know it. But the intention is not to make him buy, right? The intention is to get the feedback. So exactly like
True.
filling the water in the bucket, as I said, the intention is not to fill the bucket. The intention is to get to know where the leaks are, right? So exactly same thing has to do. Every startup founder has to do that. Sometimes even I call it this smoke test, right?
Hmm.
Even when
Hmm.
you don't have a full product ready, or even you don't have any product ready, you go and then try to advertise it and see
Yeah.
are there any buyers out there, right?
Yeah.
So this is a strategy to check the idea you are working on, before you start investing time and capital on building the actual product, try to advertise it and say, is anybody raising his hand that they will buy it even once it is ready? Right? Obviously, you're not asking for any money at this point of
True.
time, but
Yeah.
you will get a sense that is it a product that somebody is looking for, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
hence, when you start putting the efforts, you will put it in the right direction from the day one.
True. True.
So yeah, so some of these things I would advise. So in the beginning, in your 0 to 1 journey, focus 40% on tech, 40% on functional, but 20% on sales, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
and then so that's my advice to on a 0 to 1 journey to the
Yeah.
founders.
And it's so easy, right? You can quickly build up a landing page,
Yeah,
right? Put in a name and an email column there. See if people can pre-book, whatever you're trying
yeah,
to sell. Is it a SaaS based offering, or is it a product that you want to sell? Just ask them to pre-book. And I think that is one of the major motivators for you. If you see your email list building up, or if you see people willing to pay you in advance even
true.
before you launch your product, I think that is a great validator, don't you think?
Absolutely, 100%. That's exactly what I'm suggesting. That once you get that, what kind of response you are getting. Even if they ask questions about your product, that's a very positive sign. At least they
Yeah.
are excited about your product. They are not, buying in. But you leave your contact, email there. If they are
Yeah.
just sending you an email asking more details about it, or giving some feedback, or asking the features, anything, right? This is a
Yep.
very positive sign. At least they are concerned about your product. They are, it got registered in their mind in some way.
Absolutely.
It's a motivator, and it will give you sense of direction, because once people ask questions now, you get what you are building versus what they're asking. Is it in line or not, right? And
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
you start changing your direction according to that, rather than building based on a whims and fancy, assuming that, well, once I create it fully, I'll take it
Yeah.
to the market. But it never worked that way. Whatever you
Yeah.
build, you take it to the market. It will always have to be changed. It has to go
and
through a change when the tire hits the road.
and I think it becomes difficult to pivot at that time also, when you
Yeah,
have like put in so much of efforts, money,
money.
time. uh,
True.
Pivoting at that time becomes difficult, so it's always advisable to make sure that your product is a right fit. Otherwise, pivot before you even go to the market.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and ultimately the emotional attachment also comes in, right? When you put 6 months
Yeah.
of efforts in something, and
Yeah.
then the customer rejects it, you feel so much of pain, that But initially, when that much of emotional attachment is not there, then you can. It's much easier to align your product, or to pivot your product roadmap.
So true. So true. I completely agree with that. And what's the next step after that? So once you go from 0 to 1, and then now it's time to scale up, how do you go about that process?
Correct. So once you reach that product market fit stage, now the entire focus changes completely, right? Now you have a product in hand. You understand some customers need it and they are willing to pay for it, right? Now
Yeah.
it's about the scale. So now the focus will change to sales, GTM, and sales. What should be your go to market strategy in sales, and then so in this phase, I would suggest the founder should spend almost like 60% of their time on sales, and only 20% on tech and functional. Right? This is very
Hmm.
difficult for most of the tech founders when I suggest them that the
Yeah.
world, because they have built the product with so much efforts and then time and stuff like that, and now telling them only 20%
Hmm.
on tech and then 40 and 20% functional, a bulk of it is sales. It's a huge mindset shift for them. So it's a mindset shift actually that they have to have at this point, right? And then only they will become 1 to n. Otherwise, they will continue to the journey of 1 to 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. They will never reach the 10x or 100x in a finite time, right?
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
mindset changes what it will take them, or a directional change that will
Right.
take them fast, on that exponential journey from here on. Otherwise, they will be very incremental, in their progress.
Absolutely, absolutely. I really agree with that, and I think it's also got to do with the right kind of approach when you take when you go for your sales, because like you said, tech founders, they don't like to do sales. They're more
Yeah,
like, let me build my product, let me make it better.
yeah,
But generally what I've seen is I see a lot of solopreneurs also,
Yeah.
single founders. And what do you suggest? Sometimes there's just one person who is building the product, right?
Mhm.
Do you always advise them to come up with a co-founder and then go for the market, or do you feel that a solopreneur can also succeed in the market?
So it depends, Anurag, I would say. So look, ideally, if you ask me, what is the better mix? Always, a team of more than one is
Hmm.
always better, right?
Hmm.
Because startup journey is riddled with so many surprises, right? And then so
Right.
many things to do, right from the regulatory stuff, just to start with, right? When you start filing your company, the regulatory stuff, even if you have a C, etc., the
Hmm.
amount
Hmm.
of paperwork, etc., it will make you crazy, right? Right.
Correct.
So a
Correct.
solopreneur doing, number one on the regulatory side, then on the technical side, then on the functional side, then on the sales side, right? And then the fundraising side, right? If you look at all of this, it's a bit of overwhelming for one person to do it. It's not like it's impossible to do. It depends on what you are building, from where
Right.
you are coming from, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
That means if you're coming from a very strong functional skills, you have a very great, huge network already in place. You know
Mhm.
your first customers even before you start, and then that happens in many of the seasoned founders, right? They have their customers lined up even before they quit their jobs, etc., or
Yep.
the previous ventures,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
They have that kind of a commitment from their future customers. They have the functional skill in place. Sometimes they are technical, or they are so strong functionally that they outsource the technical work. So I'm saying solo founders are or building a company with solo founders is not impossible, though it's fairly difficult and challenging.
Mm.
If you have a person with whom the frequency matches, then it's always advisable to have a co-founder. But it has to be, but again, don't take it as a compulsion that I
Yeah.
have to have
Yeah.
a co-founder, because if you don't have a chemistry between co-founders, anyway it will fall apart very very soon, right?
True.
So chemistry between co-founders, is super important. I would say, right?
Yep. Yep.
Before you jump together into it. Otherwise, there are disputes, etc. We have seen again so many companies, falling off the track with great co-founders. Both of them individually were great, but they just could
Mm.
not work together. The egos came and stuff like that happened, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they could not decide unanimously on some key decisions. It is kept pending, and then disputes, etc. So that's highly ill advisable. Better than that is a solopreneurship, right?
True.
But if you can find a like-minded co-founder, it is always great to go with that.
Absolutely. And, on top of that, you have incubators and accelerators like
Yeah.
you, who are there to help the startups in their journey in scaling up. So, my next question to you, Neeraj, is how should a startup really go about this whole process of choosing the best incubator and accelerator for their business?
Wow, fantastic question, Anurag. Right, and even when I was not running this accelerator, this
Hmm.
question came to me by so many founders with whom I invested or I was advising. Right, and then let me try to answer this question, right, on best of my knowledge. Right, so there are a few things, right, that a founder should look for when choosing an incubator or accelerator. Right, number one, there is no one size fits all. So one
Right.
specific accelerator is not the best or the worst, right? It's about what you need versus what someone provides. So I give a 5 point checklist mostly to those who ask me this question, and I'm just sharing with you here. So first question you need to ask is that what gap the accelerator or incubator is filling for you. So, for example, you are a startup with one, two, or three, whatever number of co-founders, and I
Mhm.
specifically spoke about the three skills: functional, technical, and distribution. Right? Which skills you possess in house means between you three founders, two founders, right?
Mhm.
Between the founders, which of these skills are there with you? The technical skills, functional skills, and the distribution skills, right? and what accelerator is providing. So, for example, you have great functional skills, you have great distribution skills. Try to
Right.
choose an incubator that can help you on the technical side. But you have great functional and technical skills. Try to choose an accelerator on a distribution side, right? Is as simple as that. So, number one, think about the accelerator as almost like a co-founder, additional co-founder in your journey, right? Who is filling a specific gap for you, right? So that's the first point, right? Second is, what is the stage of your startup, right? So are you at idea stage, or you are at MVP stage, or you're a product market fit stage, right? Depending on where you are, your choice will change. Let's say you are at idea stage, you need more of a incubator, right? Incubator helps you incubate your idea, give you the fundamental knowledge about the functionalities, and the technicalities of a particular industry or a domain. So, for example, there are a lot of academic institutions, right, who have their own incubators, focusing on very specific topics, right? One can go there to refine their idea. So it's about reaching from idea to a product level, right? You need an incubator with the specific domain skills. But if you are a post MVP startup, right, it changes completely, right? You need more of an accelerator that can help you scale in your journey. You don't need the generic, again, the functional and the technical things, right? Second, or the third point I would say is the program structure, right? Most of the incubators and accelerator works in a cohort-based model, right?
Correct.
There's nothing bad about it, right? Especially if you are an early idea stage startup, this is absolutely perfectly fine, because you are going there to acquire certain knowledge or skills. Let's say you are going to one of the deep tech incubators, right? Then you are trying to acquire a lot of knowledge about what is eventually deep tech is, what are the current ongoing technologies, in which industries it is applicable, right? So 1 to N kind of pedagogy is completely okay, right? Because you all are learning the same thing. But again, think about it. If you are a post MVP one, chances are you have built your product, right? Means you have the basic technical and functional skills in place, right? You don't need 1 to N kind of a thing, because you already know the basics or the fundamentals, right?
Absolutely.
Now you need more of 1-to-1 hand-holding, mentoring, or even a direct intervention of the mentors to open the doors for you, etc. Right?
True.
That kind of 1-to-1 skills or 1-to-1 hand-holding is required, right? So there are some accelerators that don't work in cohort models. For example, Accesscale don't work in a cohort model. So because we work with the more mature companies, as I said earlier. So this is the third topic, right? One should look for what is the program structure. Fourth is the core competence of the accelerator or the incubator. What does that mean is that every company, every incubator and accelerator has a core competence, right? Everyone can claim to do everything, but that's not true for either any company or again for any incubator or accelerator.
Absolutely.
So when choosing incubator accelerator, go and do a deep dive search on the founding or the promoting team of that incubator accelerator, right? What skills they actually possess, what they have done themselves, right? That they can impart you, right? So, for example, if you are going to, you want to build a networking product and you are going to a Cisco incubator, you can reasonably sure that Cisco, being in networking space for last 30 years, can help you guide on the networking space, right? Or if the IITK or the ISB is telling you that they can help you on a deep tech space, they can, right? So the whole point is, whenever you do your research, right, give a very deep focus on the pedigree of the incubator or the accelerator. Who is the promoting, founding, or the team that is backing that accelerator, and what skills they have? It means, can they deliver on what they're promising? As simple as that, right? And the last thing is on the funding side, right? All of the incubators, accelerators, help startups get the funding from the external VCs, angel investors, etc. They all have their networks, and then that's a common denominator, I would say. But you will find some of the accelerators, some of the incubators provide funding from their side, right? From their own corpus, their own money. The whole point here is they have more skin in the game. As simple as that, right? Anyone can understand.
True.
If they are putting their own money, they are taking much higher bets on the startup. They are more concerned for simple thing, because their money is also there, right? So they are more concerned, or they are more involved in the with the startup, right? So look for those, if you can find some of these incubator or accelerator that giving you some funding, in-house funding, apart from providing the platform, or
Mm-hmm.
helping to get it from the other angel networks or the VCs. So these are the 5 points I would say one can consider while trying to select incubator or accelerator.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these nuggets will really help all these startup founders who are early in their journey. They are figuring out whom to reach out, how to reach out, because it's really important the way you put out in a very structured manner, that you understand if you are an early stage startup, you are still in your ideation phase, then of course going for an incubator makes more sense, because there you can build up all your functional skills, your IT skills. You'll understand the market better. You'll understand how the whole infrastructure is built, because like I meet a lot of entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs who are building their products, but they're so much invested in just building that product that they forget that there's so many other things, like
Yeah,
you spoke about legal, you spoke about other things that you need, maybe a SaaS based system to help you with your marketing, with your sales. There's so many different criterias that needs to be taken care of once you launch, then that they don't understand that. I think that is where incubators really come into place, and they help you to set up your business in a more structured and functional manner. And of course, once you are in the market, you have launched, you have made your unit sales, you are there to scale up now. I think that is where accelerators really help you, and the word accelerator means it, they will help you to really accelerate, go from gear 2 to gear 5.
yeah,
That is where the power of accelerators come in. And also a very important point that you made was finding out the key competencies for each of these incubators and accelerators. That is, I think, again, a very good point there. And people listening, guys, please make sure you invest enough time in researching about the accelerators and incubators that you want to apply for, so that you get a clear understanding with whom you want to work with. And because it's again going to be a long term engagement with the accelerator as well. So thank you so much, Neeraj, for those advices and strategies that people can use. Apart from
thanks.
that, we also touched base a bit on VCs, getting
Yeah.
funding. What is your advice for startups with respect to this? How can they attract the right kind of VCs?
Yeah, again, a great question, and I touched upon this earlier on, right? So there are two things, right? As I keep on saying to all the startup founders, so it's almost like a dating game, right? So either you chase the potential partner, or you make yourself attractive so they get attracted to you, right? So it can work both ways. The intent is the same, to attract the potential partner, right?
Yep.
So as I said in the beginning, if you have, so VCs are looking for good startups. It's not like they have the money and they're just sitting there, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are not
Yeah.
sitting there with all that money not to invest. They are there to invest, right? Their intent, or
Mm-hmm.
their charter is to invest, right? That's why the LP has LPs and
Yeah.
GP structure has came together, and so
Yeah.
they have all the money to invest, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
fundamental thing, right? Now you need to get that money, or if you need access to that money, you need to understand what they are looking for, right? So they are looking for some of the key fundamental matrices, as I said, and some competencies, right? If you show them that as I said earlier, if you have the right technical, functional, and distribution skills, and you demonstrate it by proof points, right? Not theoretically, but by through the proof points in the market, that you can able to achieve so and so, they will be more than willing to put money on you, right? So if you are building a great product, right, if you are solving a right problem, and if you have the right distribution skills, that you could able to acquire customer in a reasonable cost, they would be
Mm-hmm.
more than willing to put the money on you, right?
Right.
One of the important rules of this, not only the VC world, but this entire world, I would say, the capital chases the person who don't need it, right?
Right.
And
Right.
then let me explain you what does that mean. If today the monies have to go and then ask a bank to give them money, all the banks will line up to give them money, right? And then if there's an unemployed person who go to the bank and say, give me some money, they will not give him money, right?
Right,
And
right.
then this is the exactly opposite that what should happen, right? Ultimately, the
True.
industrialists don't need the money.
Yeah.
The unemployed guy need the money to start his business, but they
Yeah.
don't give him money, right? So
Hmm.
the whole point is because it's about the credit worthiness, right? As we call it, right? Who is credit worthy to return the money with interest, right? Or with
Hmm.
the returns, right? That's what the VC also look for, right? So
Yep.
they look for the companies whom they feel can return the money with good returns, right? And who
Hmm.
can return the money? Who are running a profitable business, right? So it's as
Correct.
simple as that. If you are giving a money to someone who's running a profitable business, there's a very, very, very high chance that he will return the money. If somebody is burning the cash, right? There's always a more risk, right? And then VC will be a
True.
worse, right?
Yeah.
So simple thing is that if you can learn to sell your product, and then that's why again I come back to my earlier point, distribution skills, right? So distribution is about multiple things that finding the right geography, finding the right channels, finding the right demographic, finding the right positioning compared to your competitors, and finding the right
Hmm.
pricing. Because if you do all of that right, you will able to sell your product profitably, right?
Yep. Yep.
And then VCs look for this. Are you able to sell your product, or what is the cost of your sales compared to your product cost, right?
Hmm.
If you get these matrices right, they say if the return on investment on the sales is better than 3x, etc. Some of these ballpark or thumb rules,
Hmm.
they will more than willing to invest with you, right?
Right.
Because the whole point is they know if we invest to a scale, and then the company will earn 3x revenues, then obviously we will eventually get our money with decent returns in the near future, right? So the whole
Yep.
point is try to get your fundamental matrices right. And then once you have that right, automatically VCs will come. As I said, if you just get it right and then meet the right investing partners,
Hmm.
they will more than willing to invest with you. So capital is not a problem in in today's market, right? Just understand that part. Means I talk
Yeah.
to multiple VCs every week, right? Capital is not a problem. If you're thinking that there's a scarcity of capital, that's absolutely incorrect. That there's a lot of capital sitting out there to be deployed in the right kind of investments.
True, true. Absolutely. And even I think that as a startup, the biggest, the biggest wrong mindset that you can have is to get into a startup just to raise funds. Because if
Yeah,
if you are just thinking that I want to start a business, I want to start a startup just because I think that I'll get funding, I think that's a wrong approach towards the business. Attracting
absolutely.
Yeah, attracting the right VCs should be the goal. And like you said, money is not an issue. VCs are actually looking for good startups to fund, and be like they say, the honeycomb, right? So
Yeah,
you be like that so that honey can come to you.
it's
So
true.
so rightly said, Neeraj. And I'm sure after listening to all of our talks so far, a lot of people would be really interested to know more about Xscale and what Xscale is doing in order to support the startup ecosystem in India. So, would you like to touch base upon that, and how can a startup approach you, and how can they apply?
Absolutely, absolutely, Anurag. So, Xscale, as I said in the beginning, is working on a very simple, purpose of helping a startup scale their business, right, in India and outside of the India. Uh, so we work with companies again, as I said, which are in early revenue stage, so who have these covered almost their 0 to 1 journey. So they have to have been early revenue stage, or at least be a MVP should be there, right? And then we can help them scale, right? So that's the kind of the companies we prefer to work. Obviously, that means we want to work with companies with founders who have a great technical and functional skills, because GTM and sales skill, as I said, we come along almost like a co-founder with the startup, and then complement those skills. So actually, we
Hmm.
are not too worried about that skill. we complement that. So we look for founders with great technical and functional skills. They need to have a product ready, and then obviously the idea or the product needs to have a potential to scale. Really, it needs, the idea itself should be big enough that it can be scaled in India and outside, right? So these are
Right.
the companies we look for. Now, what is or how we work with the startups? So we are kind of very different from most of the other accelerators or incubators that are there in India today. Number one is, we have a philosophy of deep commitment to the startup, right? That means we just work with 12 to 15 startups a year.
Okay.
So most of the other accelerator incubators, they work in cohorts. They have 10 to 15 startups per 3 or 4 months batches, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So they have almost like 40 to 80 startups. They work within a year. We work with just 12 to 15. We have no concepts of cohorts because, again, we, as I said, that these are on the early revenue stage companies. They need the individual mentoring. So our mentors spend dedicated time every week with these startups, right? There is no one-to-n kind of pedagogy. Means we don't do one-to-n kind of classes or common sessions. So everything is one-to-one, in Nexus scale.
Okay.
The other interesting aspect I will touch upon, when to show the deep commitment, all of our mentors invest in their startups. They mentor, and then that's it's not only the company that invests in the startup. It's the mentor put their personal capital in the startup. So obviously, we a company has a
Interesting.
corpus. Yeah, but every mentor has to invest in the startup they
Okay.
mentor. Yeah, this is just to show their commitment and again to put more skin in the game, right? So they are fully committed to the success of the startup. So look, I worked, I don't name, but I have worked as an advisor or in with 3 of the incubators and accelerator in the past, in the last 1.5 years, right? And when I was talking to some of these founders, they told me, it's very difficult to get hold of mentors, right? I said that should not be the case because, you are in an accelerator or an incubator because, they are supposed to provide you mentorship, right? But they said,
True.
because of their schedules or they are busy, etc. But personally, to me, that those are, I would say, the excuses, and those are the problems that accelerators should be solving. So
Yeah.
that's why we put this unique structure in place to drive the commitment to the next level, right? Where they put their capital. So this is on the part of commitment, right?
Right.
On again, as I said, our focus is on very highly on GTM and sales. So we work with the startups we develop their entire go-to-market plan, which geographies, which sales channels, direct sales, redistribution, right, resellers, what channels they should be choosing, and it does not stop by telling them what to choose. We actually, since most of the partners or most of the team behind Accesscale themselves are mostly are the senior sales and marketing leaders, right? So we are like most of us are the CROs or CMOs, etc., right? So we have been there, done that, right? So we have a very good network of the distributors, etc., where we can easily connect the startups and then they can become the distributors or resellers or channel partners or GTM partners for these startups. So actually, we go into the execution level and then make it happen, right? Even if a sales leader has to be hired, if the founders don't have the right sales skills, a new person has to be hired. We get it hired because we have worked with thousands of good sales guys in the past, right? We know who can come and fill this gap. So we go into the execution of GTM sales, right? So that's the other part. Global expansion is something we focus on. I spoke or started in the beginning, right? The companies which have a product that can be taken to a global scale or a global level, we help that. Many of our almost 40% of the team in X scale is situated outside of India, right? Be it in US, UK, or Singapore, right? Most of these, dominant market. And hence, since they are sitting there, they have the direct connects to the customer base there, right? So it's very difficult for a startup to sell from India and US, if you really ask me, without having any presence in US. Nobody buys that because there's no contract, etc. Even if they sign a contract, it does not have any value. They're not coming to India, right, to enforce that contract, right? So that's why once you have a physical presence there, a person is there, who is vouching for a startup, who is a senior person out there. He himself is at a VP or a CXO level. They are in US, and then he is introducing a startup. That's a very, very big plus for a startup, right? And then we have seen it directly that at least the startups got POCs, etc., fairly easily because of this introduction. And obviously, when they prove their product, the bigger sell will happen. But getting that POC, the door opening itself is the biggest challenge, if you really ask me, for Indian startups to go out, right? And then get that POC with the international customers. So that has been done fairly easily with our network in place. So that's how we help companies, startups go global. Obviously, as I said, that we will do the demand generation exercise from India. Right. We sign the distribution partners in the respective geographies, etc. And finally, the funding, we have an in-house fund. As I said, the accelerator puts it fund in the startups it takes, as well as the mentors put their fund. So we provide the funding. Obviously, we have a network of VCs and angel who invest with us, whenever we fund. So those are the key things, right? And how to apply with us is fairly simple. We have our website, accessscaleglobal.com. One can go there and then apply. There is a form there they can fill, and our team will come back to them.
For sure, yeah. I mean, guys, if you want to apply for Xscale Accelerator, the links will be in the show notes below, as well as Neeraj's LinkedIn profile link will also be there, just in case you want to reach out to him, get more guidance and understand more about Xscale. I'm sure he'll be happy to help you, or
Absolutely.
Someone from his team will definitely help you out in that. So with that, Neeraj, I think we had a great episode today. A lot of good nuggets, a lot of good strategies that you shared with the people listening. I'm sure a lot of founders and entrepreneurs would have gained good insights and good strategies that they can implement in their journey and make their products better, so that they can serve the world in a better way. So with that, thank you so much, Neeraj, for being on the Socially Desi show. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks a lot, Anurag, for having me here. Thanks again, and then best of luck to all those aspiring founders. Happy to help in whatever way we can. Thanks a ton.
So that wraps it up for today, folks. If you liked the episode, give it a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, and let's go viral. Remember, our weekly podcast features episodes on personal growth, mental health, relationships, business and entrepreneurship, and health and fitness. We would love to have Mr. Neeraj on the show again in the future to talk about the wonderful startup ecosystem we have in India. So, if you haven't yet done so, hit that subscribe button and go check out our website at sociallydesi.com. And as always, before I sign off, remember, life is black and white and everything in between.